Hey there guys, my name is Bizzleberry and I'm a Grandmaster support. I'm here to bring you a Thresh guide. If you haven't seen these guides before that I've done for lots of different support champions now, like for Leona, Zyra, Soraka, Yumi, then feel free to check out those guides as well. We also do tier lists every couple of weeks when those new patches come through, just to make sure you guys are up to date completely of how you should be playing, or how I think you should be playing support in solo queue. So the way we do this is we talk through runes and abilities and items and any like little tips and tricks that you should be maybe aware of when going into your games. And currently I am streaming live on twitch.tv/Bizzleberry. People in the comments will be asking questions about Thresh as we go through, and if I feel like there's something here relevant, I'll take a question and answer it live, just in case I miss anything. So this is my primary build on Thresh, as an Aftershock build. We are on patch 10.12 right now, and Guardian got nerfed in 10.12. I don't recommend a Guardian build on any tank right now. That's due to the movements being taken out. For me, the only viable build right now on Thresh is an Aftershock build. So you run the Aftershock. Demolish is a really good rune for taking down turrets, and honestly, there isn't really a valid option here. Font of Life is very, very weak, and don't get baited into taking that really. Like, getting the extra turret plating is guaranteed. With the Demolish is too much of a big factor, especially if you win that fight in the bot lane. Bone plating, you can mix it up here. If you're against a siege bot lane, like with double poke, you might want second wind. If you're against another team that's got a lot of burst or hard engage in the bot lane, then go bone plating. Conditioning is okay, but you won't be as tanky as someone as like a top lane tank getting those extra percentage on the resistances in. So I'd recommend bone plating overall if you're not sure. Overgrowth is probably the best rune here. It gives you flat max health throughout the entire game. Thresh doesn't really need revitalize. He has a little shield on his lantern, but there's nothing crazy and not really necessary. And unflinching kind of got nerfed in my opinion in 10.12. It gives you more tenacity as you're low on HP, but honestly you shouldn't be in a situation like, by the time you've done everything you need to do as a hard engage, it's all about staying alive, and Overgrowth is the most consistent way of doing that. Inspiration secondaries here are my favorite. I don't really think there's a valid option elsewhere. I like taking Hextech Flash, similar to like Leona, if you saw that guide, or like Blitzcrank. I really like taking that rune. Just got raided by Foxdrop. Hi Foxdrop, catching live in a YouTube video. How you doing? So Hextech Flash I like taking on Leona and Blitzcrank. If those hook type champions are hard engaged champions, you have a lot of priority over brush, and that's a great way to just jump out. If you do want to go the Stoneplate route, the Gargoyle Stoneplate, then taking the Stopwatch is fine. Also, if you're worried about a lot of tower dives potentially happening, that's also a really good rune to take as well. Like, both of them are valid options. After that, you've got a lot of things that you can mess around here with. You've got, say, if you're playing, now that approach velocity got changed in 10.12, if you have an AD carry that has a lot of CC, like an Ashe for example, you will get bonus movement speed when you're running towards those targets, so it could help you get into flay range. That's quite an important change that's happened this patch, that this approach velocity will make you think about like what your AD carry has in their kit and if you can utilize that, because the alternative really is Cosmic Insight, and it isn't a huge thing. The most important thing on Thresh is snowballing and catching people out, so this approach velocity here could be really good. If you're not sure if your AD carry hasn't got that many slows, then go the cookies route or the Cosmic Insight route. If you're not sure, just go biscuits just to be safe in terms of the sustaining lane. But only take the cookies if you feel like you're going to be poked down a lot in the laning phase, especially the first portion. Otherwise, if you're low on health, you'll never be able to engage, and it's the main tool of how Thresh will lose lane, is by being poked down a lot in the laning phase and then not being able to do anything from that. Rune wise, you have options here as well. Thresh is pretty unique in terms of the lots of different things you can take here. So you can play a more aggressive build with like double adaptive force and maybe armor depending on what your enemy has. You could also attach an attack speed there as well, because Thresh will be doing a lot of attack speeds during the laning phase. And you've also got cooldown reduction. I think overall, if you're not sure, I think this rune build here with the resistances is solid. If you're going against an AD jungler and an like a AD support, say if you're going against like Jhin, Senna, and there's a Graves on the enemy team, just take the double armor and that'll make you pretty tanky early on. Otherwise, mix them up so that you're pretty tanky in the laning phase, and I would recommend either the cooldown reduction for some decent scaling in the game with the CDR. Otherwise, the attack speed can be pretty useful, not only for like clearing out wards quickly, but the auto attack damage that you get from that is pretty nice too. So what we're going to do now is we're going to be moving over into the practice tool. We'll talk about summers very briefly while we do that, and then in the practice tool we'll talk about all the different items and things like that as well. Boop, 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 boop. Thresh, we'll use the base skin just in case there's any confusion. Make sure I've got my flash. So that is the most key thing there, is flash is pretty much in every single champion anyway to help you get into engage range. And ignite, you're looking for kills in the early laning phase. Thresh can be really aggro early, and you really just want to work off snowballing. It's the same with all the hard engaged champions. You would like that kill whether it's in your bot lane or whether it's through roaming. Alright. Game, wake up, please. Thank you. Sorry about that. Alright, I'll just give myself lots of money here. So what we'll do now is we'll start talking about items. So Thresh, you'll always want steel shoulder guards and 2 health potions. You don't want relic shield, even though you do have some ability scalings on your E, your ulti, and your Q. As we mentioned earlier with the attack speed, you're going to want to try and auto attack as much as possible. So that's when the extra AD comes into, as that's more valuable in the laning phase. The relic shield will be stronger later in the game, but it's like marginal in terms of extra damage, and it's not worth it. So always the steel shoulder guards first item. Now, what I would advise you to do in terms of looking for boots wise is you're going to want to either look at Moby boots if you're able to roam to mid lane, or if you're feeling like you're linking up with your jungler. Thresh is probably one of the best supports to take if you're duo with your jungler because of his lantern ability, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if you're working a lot in terms of roaming around on the map, ganking around, then Moby Boots is a really good option. If you are against a champion bot side that has lots of slows, Boost of Swiftness is still really good in terms of extra movement speed. You can still roam around a little bit. It's slightly cheaper than Mobility Boots. And you won't lose the combat speed. Moby Boots gives you a lot of movement speed, but as soon as you enter combat, you lose that movement. So getting tagged by a random minion will put you into combat and you'll lose the movement speed. So Boots of Swiftness can be a pretty nice alternative into the Moby Boots. But if you're against a team where it's like pure physical damage or a lot of CC, then you're going to want to take those answers there as well. You're going to want the Merc Treads for the CC, and you're going to want the Ninja Tabi against all that physical auto-attacking damage. So very similar, if you had to take double armor on the bot side, you'd probably be looking at the Ninja Tabi. So let's just take the Moby Boots here. Now, it's quite difficult to pinpoint, and each game is pretty unique to their own, and it's hard to go wrong on building Thresh, but there are optimized routes on where to take your items. So the item that will make you the most tankiest, say if you're the only tank in the game, then look towards the Gargoyle Stone Plate. Just procking that off in the middle of the fight. You'll have the stopwatch earlier on to do a stasis, and then later on you'll be really tanky with the Gargoyle Stone Plate. When you get into the middle of a team fight and then pop it, you'll be really tanky for about 4 seconds. If you have other people that can be the front line for you, then you're looking more towards like the utility items. Like a Zeke's will still make you a little bit tanky, and it's pretty cheap, but it isn't as tanky as a stone plate. The better reason to take the Zeke's as well over the stone plate is you've got mana, which helps you out during the laning phase. You can go the Glacial Shroud, the first item, and you get some cooldown reduction too. The extra buff that you get from the Zeke's is that your AD carry gets a little bit more damage, which you use that item on them when you use your ultimate. But that damage isn't huge, but the slow aura that you get from popping this item is also is the main reason why this item is valid. The slow is pretty good. So stone plate if you want to be the tank of your team, Zeke's if you still want to be relevant in the front line and want to provide a tiny bit more utility. Knight's Vow is a pretty decent item too. It has health, which you'll be lacking from either of these items. So Knight's Vow will usually be your second item regardless. The extra health is nice, you get some more cooldown reduction, and you use this on your AD carry or anyone else who's doing really well that's particularly squishy, and makes them slightly more tankier as well. And you get a little bit of health back when they do damage. So it's a nice item, but I primarily take it just because it has some health. I don't know if anyone has played World of Warcraft or MMORPGs about the whole effective health. If you have, you can have a ridiculous amount of resistances, but if you've only got 1 HP, you're going to die in one hit still. So you got to balance it out and juggle between those a little bit. Some people like playing a caster Thresh where they're on the back line saving lives and then having redemption. Don't recommend. Locket is an okay item to take if you can pick up some health. So if you're scared, say if you've got like 3+ magic damage users on the enemy team, a lot of it being AoE, Locket is good for self-protection, but this shield is kind of rubbish until you've got bonus HP, as 20% of your bonus health gets converted into that shield. So if you're not picking up any health, like if you then take the Locket, then take Stoneplate or Zeke's, this shield is going to be really minimal. So then you'll definitely be looking towards like Locket, like second item, be like Knight's Vow first item, then into Locket, and then you're looking at maybe an item that has like a Giant's Belt equivalent. You could do something like the Randomman's Omen. You could maybe take the Redemption. That would also increase the shield value of the Locket, but Locket overall isn't particularly that great right now. One item that's really expensive but is an amazing snowboarding tool is Righteous Glory. Not many people take it because if I buy the Glacial Shroud, that would be the most important item to buy early on. And then you buy the Bracer, it's then a 1,100 conversion cost, and for a support it's ridiculously expensive. But if you get it, the movement speed that you get hunting towards enemies that are a lot weaker than you, if you're fed because you have this item, then you can snowball the game pretty quickly from doing that by catching people off. So this is a really good snowballing item if you're doing really well early. So hopefully that covers up the items quite a bit. That's basically the basics. So a standard build would be, you'd be looking at Stoneplate first item into a Knight's Vow, and then you could then pick up the Zeke's. Obviously make sure you pick up Control Wards, and that is like your full build with an Oracles later on into the late game once you've got the 500 gold completed on your Steel Shoulder Guards. And that is your core build. If you really wanted to shove a sick item on there, instead of the Control Wards, then look for just a tankier item in the list. Like if you want some more magic resistance, then you can go towards the Locket, or you could take like the Randuins if you're against a lot of auto attacking champions. But at this point, most 99% of your games will be over at this point in the game. You could also pick up the Tenacity Potion as well. You know, when Barons are starting to kick off, that potion will help a lot in giving you extra stats for those fights. What about Thornmail? Thornmail is a good option against self-healing targets. I will say it's pretty unreliable to get them to hit you though, as the enemy really shouldn't be hitting you and then getting the debuff for themselves. But you know, it can happen. If they've got lots of auto-attacking champions with lifesteal and death stances, Bramble Vest can be an additional tool. You could go into Bramble. It's not a bad thing to do. It's just not particularly efficient, but it can help. Right, now that's the items completed, we're now going to be going through the abilities on Thresh. It's time to give us all the levels. Let's just kill off the minions here. And put some dummies down. Okay. Okay, so Thresh's passive is souls. When minions die, it's very similar to Senna if you've ever played Senna. So when minions die, when champions die, when neutral objectives die in the jungle, they have a chance of spawning souls. So what souls do is they increase your armor and they give you more ability power. The more souls you get, the less effect that you'll have. So the souls that you pick up early on will give you the most value, and then it drops off a lot. So it's quite important to do your best to try and pick up souls early during the laning phase for those extra bonus stats, especially for the armor, because armor is going to be the most valuable thing for you, especially during the laning phase against the auto attacks that you're going to be taking. But you know, just do your best to don't overextend for it, but just do your best to walk up the range. You need to be pretty much almost standing on top of them. You can use your lantern to pick them up, but we'll talk about that in a second. So Thresh has a hook, and you throw it out this way here, drags them slightly towards you, and then your second component to this ability is when you do land this hook, you can press the button again and then you go towards them. So it's nice on Thresh that you have say if you hook a tank here, you don't need to press Q again to go in if you don't want to. So you have the option to go in or not, which is pretty nice. This will interrupt any channeled abilities that are going on because it grabs them. So that's nice. One thing about this ability though is it can be cleansed. So if an enemy AD carry, for example, has cleanse, they can instantly get out of that straight away. So, you know, bear that in mind. If you're against a Morgana, the hook will land. They won't get dragged because it will be immune to CC, but you can still go onto them, onto a target that has Black Shield. So just throwing out there, a lot of Morganas end up quite surprised that the Thresh still goes in on that, and you can go quite a long distance. One other thing about this ability is when you press this Q, you will, as you're dashing in, you'll follow where they're going. So if they flash away, you'll still be on their face. So yeah, not Sivir E though. No, Sivir E is a different spell shield where it will just not land at all, but it's not the same as Morgana shield. So the second ability on Thresh is Lantern. This is where Thresh gets all his memes from, is that people not clicking the lantern. So as mentioned before, you can pick up your souls with the lantern just by chucking them on. Bear in mind though, lantern early on has quite a long cooldown, and it's not something that you want to do too regularly. So lantern gives you a shield, and it gives any allied champions a shield here too, like that. Also, a thing is say if when you throw this out, you won't get the shield if you throw it away from you. But if your ally clicks the lantern and then they bring the lantern back to you, you then get the shield. So that's how you get the shield that way too. It just happens automatically. So this is a good tool in also that your allied champions can click the lantern. And then that's a good tool to get like your jungler in, or to save someone squishy getting caught out on the front line. It's a really valuable tool in Thresh's kit. One of the only champions that can save someone in a really bad position and get them out near instantly. One thing about this though, one thing about the lantern is that you have to click it. Your allied teammates have to click it, and people like to block it with wards or by standing on top of it. So that is one way that you might end up having your lantern countered. It's quite a higher ELO mechanic. You might not see it too often if you're in the lower ELOs, but it's something that you should be bearing in mind. Or if you're playing against a Thresh, that's a neat little trick that you can do, as they'll start attacking the ward rather than clicking on the lantern. One way around that as well is by zooming in, and then it's easier to click, but it's valuable information that you should be aware of. Right, your next ability is Flay. So this scales off how many souls you pick up. It has nice base damage anyway, but it actually scales off how many souls you pick up. So if you're picking up more souls in the lane, your Flay is going to be doing more auto attack damage on your autos. So I should make that clear. The Flay has two components. There's a passive and then there's the active. The more souls you pick up on the Flay, you get increased damage on your auto attacks. You can always tell if a Thresh level 1 has Flay or not by this buff down here. If they don't have this buff, it says Flay, then they have Q level 1. Just in case you wanted that additional information there. So you can reveal to your enemy that you are starting Flay. Now the thing about Flay is that it does more damage when you haven't done an auto attack recently. So if I attack this, if you keep an eye on the buff that we have at the bottom here, if I auto attack this, you can see it's slowly channeling through. It will change color, and red means max damage. So that will do the most amount of damage. Now it's back to red, and if you do multiple auto attacks like this, it just keeps putting it back off cooldown. Now, the second part of this is Thresh's Flay, which is his active. You can use this in two directions. You can use this to push units away, all units, minions and champions. You can use this to help wave clear, or you can pull them in. So a very common combo would just be Q, fly in, and then flay them towards your teammate. If you want to disengage from someone from engaging, then usually you would flay away. And that can also interrupt channels and interrupt dashes mid-cast. So a Thresh, if you're really smart and paying attention, you can use this to interrupt things like Tristana rocket jump. As she jumps up into the air, if you quickly flay towards you, then it will interrupt it straight away. Also, another thing as well is if you're using the flay to push them away, it starts at the back, so it takes a little bit longer to get there. So if you're looking to interrupt someone like doing a dash like Tristana, you always want to pull them towards you, because then the flay starts to the left and brings them in quickly. So always bring them into you if you want to interrupt as quickly as possible. So he can interrupt dashes, and it's a really high, like that is a really high mechanical thing to learn on Thresh. He's not an easy champion, there's a lot of things going on here. Then finally his ultimate, the box, puts down 5 walls down. If anyone gets hit by this, they can only get hit by the wall once in terms of damage, but they can get hit by multiple walls, but only get taken as slow. So if someone's pinned in here, if they try and walk through it either side, they take damage and they get dramatically slowed. 99%. It's basically almost a route in itself. So what you can do in a combo if enemy is too close to you is you can hook them, put your wall up, and then flay them into the wall, into the box. And that does a lot of damage. That does an insane amount of damage on a squishy target, especially early on. If you can pull that off, that's like the best. So I'll show that off again in case you missed it. So you want to hook, go straight onto them, pop up the box, and then flay them into the wall if they're being reluctant to walk into it themselves. If they've already taken a hit of the wall, then you want to maybe use your flay in a different way to get them closer to your teammate or whatever, but the main use of the flay there is just to push them into the box. You can also use that to disengage, so this could also be a part of your disengage. So you put the box up, you flay them away, and you try and run away. Maybe put a lantern for a teammate that's stunned. So you got a couple of different uses, whether you want to engage or disengage on Thresh. Now we'll talk about the ability skill order for these. So Lantern is the one that you level last, but you have to decide between Q or E. So the arguments for the Q or the E is how often you're going to be going in to poke them. Putting points in Q will, as of season 10, will reduce the cooldown of your hook. I think it starts at 20 and then it goes down 2 seconds per point. Whereas your E, it doesn't affect the cooldown of it whatsoever, but it will increase the slow and the damage. So if you're getting involved in the fights quite often, then E is the best option. If you're having to play safer and you're looking for more of that engage, then Q is better, because then you'll have more windows of opportunity to throw out your Q and then make a play from that. So if you're having to play quite safe, I would say Q. If you're getting to play more aggressive, then E. The ideal is E, but it's okay to do Q as well. I think we've covered a lot of the advanced moves as we've been talking about the abilities and things. Usually I go through stuff at the end, but you know, we've mentioned your lantern can be warded. That's a big thing as well. Using your flay to interrupt dashes, that's also a factor as well. But yeah, I think that is everything I want to cover. I don't want to make this too complicated, as this guide is tailored to either new players to the support role or new players playing Thresh. Yeah, that's true. People can teleport also to your lantern. Now, that is a thing as well. A lot of people didn't know that, but yeah, that's a thing too. People ask you to flash flay. Yeah, so another engage is, instead of relying on your hook landing, getting into range as well, closing that gap, flay them back, and then into the hook. So that is probably like the best move to do. That's a shame it hasn't. Oh, it's because they've got hextech flash, but flash, flay, hook, and then into a wall is ideally the best, because you flay them into your hook. So the closer that they are to you, it makes that like cone smaller of where they can dodge. So if you're hooking someone right in front of you, the only way they're going to be able to escape is by flashing. But I hope this guide helps you out. I've got loads of other support guides coming out this month, and we're on about close to about 10 guides now for season 10, looking to expand that to 30. Got tier lists coming out every single patch, so you guys are always up to date or where you need to be on your support role. Hope you guys have been enjoying the guide series. Make sure you, if you are watching on YouTube, subscribe and follow and all that good stuff. Make sure you click the bell. I would appreciate that. Ding ding. And yeah, look forward to new guides coming. Let me know in the comment section down below what to do next. I'm not sure what guide's coming out next. I haven't decided yet. So any ideas or inspiration, or if someone's really pumped up about a particular champion, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Stay safe as always and keep out for another one. I'll try and link as well down below a high ELO gameplay session that I've done on Thresh recently as well, just so you got some references to work on as well. So yeah, take care.